Flosstube. It's Arlene here. It is Thursday, December 14th, 2023. Kind of cold outside, but I thought, let me see if I can get in a video today. I know that this is such a busy holiday time. I don't know how much Flosstube you're watching. Everyone's, and it's not just holiday time, it's everyone's time of year. It can be so different. As a teacher, there's certain times of my year that might be more chaotic than someone whose life is on a different kind of schedule. So I did want to make sure I had a December check-in with all of you. As always, I so appreciate that you're here. There are so many floss tubes to watch these days, and it's truly an honor that you come to hang out with me and see what I have to share. If you're new here, welcome. What you will soon see is that I do a lot of cross stitch. I'm a designer, and so I'm not often showing a lot of my current projects, but I also do a lot of other needlework styles, and that's going to be some of the focus for today. So let me just jump into things, given that I've mentioned being a designer. So I'm gearing up toward Nashville. If you are unfamiliar, and while plenty of people probably say, oh, I know what that is, but there's still people who don't know out there. Nashville is actually the Nashville Needlework Market that happens at the very beginning of March each year. It's an in-person wholesale market. So it's where stores go to purchase directly from designers, from fabric dyers, but designers, and then go back home and sell to their customers. So it's an in-person opportunity. I think if you've had any opportunity to be in store or somewhere where you see somebody stitching, it is, no matter the best photography you can take, seeing it in person always makes it so much better. And so that's why, one of many reasons why having an in-person market is such a great idea. So what I learned a few years ago is I was kind of building up my Works by ABC, my design business, and just learning a little bit more about the wholesale aspect of this, that a lot of designers really do kind of think about the year and the planning for Nashville. Maybe, shall we say, saving their best stuff. I don't know. So I am at the point where I have 5 definite projects with 4.5 of them stitched. I have another 6th one that is pretty much ready to go. I'm just waiting for fabric to arrive. And it's a small one, so it won't take that long to stitch. And then I'm debating, I have this idea that's been percolating for the last week or so, seeing if I could make it happen, because I would love to. And it's the kind of thing that I think I will make it happen. If it doesn't happen in time for Nashville this year, it'll be done at some other point. And I was sort of writing down for myself what's been done and so on. And I realized that I have a variety of types of fabric and threads that I've used for my projects that are done so far. And when we get to the point, which will probably be in February, when I do a floss tube that shares all my new Nashville stuff, I'll definitely kind of circle back and talk about that. And I was just kind of, again, waiting for a piece of fabric that had me thinking, well, what other types of fabrics have I used here? Well, what threads have I used? And so on. And so speaking of that one that's been percolating in my mind the last week, and I'm tying this in, we're going to have a giveaway today. I love the opportunity of sharing with stitchers. I love hearing thoughts and opinions. I realized it had been a while. I usually don't wait this long between doing a giveaway. I would like to give away probably to 2, maybe even 3 people a free pattern of mine, whether it's a PDF or a physical pattern. This is going to be a giveaway. What you need to do to enter this is down in the comments, I am looking for ideas of monochrome color combinations. What fabric, what thread? What have you done? What have you seen? What do you like? What do you not like? And so here's this percolating project. I believe I'm going to want to stitch as a monochrome design. And the first thing that jumps out at me is like a relatively dark color fabric and something like white thread to really make it stand out. However, one of my other designs for Nashville, as I've given hints before, and you'll see little hints on Instagram as well, is a new one of my lace designs. And that is one that has been stitched, it's at the framers right now. that has been stitched on a relatively dark color fabric with white thread. And so if I decide to do this new one in monochrome, I definitely want it to be different. But I don't know. I keep thinking. And so I would love some ideas. So if you would like to be entered in a giveaway for one of my Works by ABC patterns, I'll put a link to my Etsy store so you can see the variety of stuff that I have, mostly cross stitch. There's a few black work designs and even some of my older canvas work designs, but mostly cross stitch. So in your comment, let me know what monochrome stitching color ideas you like for yourself. I mean, the beauty of doing a monochrome project is that whatever I end up stitching the model in, you are certainly not limited to that. I mean, you have the world as your oyster, so to speak. But I need some ideas. So tell me, what color fabric, what color thread would you like if you were choosing a monochrome project right now? Give me some ideas to think about. And maybe this will all come to fruition in some way. So, and I like the idea of being able to share my work with all of you. And it's, like I said, it's been a while since a giveaway. So, as I mentioned, I've got these random hairs that are like in my face today. Where was I? So, I stitch all of my own designs. I stitch all my own models. It's just where I am as a designer. I feel like not a single project, like when I hit print on a pattern, getting ready to, I've designed it on a computer, sketched it out, whatever, and then I'm going to stitch it. It never stays the way, whether it's a few stitches that have changed, whether it's threads that have changed, whether it's a whole area that's changed. And so this idea of just designing something and then handing it off for someone else to stitch, I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me at this time. Might that change in my designing career? Absolutely. So while a lot of my stitching lately certainly has been Nashville stuff, like I said, I'm in this little in-between time as I've been waiting for some new fabric, and I thought, well, let me jump in with something small. Not every single one, but over the last few months, a number of my Flosstube videos have been talking about my needlework loves. I talked about black work and hardanger and canvas work and white work and so on. And I had a small canvas work project, and I thought, you know what, this is going to be perfect. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not loving it. I'm going to finish it. I don't know if I'll add the border to it, and I'll share with you what it's all about. And I just realized I forgot to bring the folder pattern up here. So it is through my local EGA. There was going to be a year-long kind of stitch along. It's a pattern called Tumbling Stripes by Marilyn Owens, and it's a canvas work design. Like the instructions say, to stitch on 18 count canvas. There's not really a reason why you have to, particularly with the stitches that are involved here. I had this fabric that, it's a color. It's an overdyed. It's a solo dye, hand dyed fabric that I'm not sure. I think I must have purchased it kind of early on in my designing career and just came to realize I don't really want to stitch on fabrics for models that are not available to other people. And if you stitch on something that's a solo dye, it's not going to be available. So I had this just piece of fabric, and I thought, well, this is perfect. So this was done like every month. The woman coordinating through the EGA was sending an email with basically the entire project broken up into 12 parts. Maybe it was 11 parts. I'm not the kind of person that could do a tiny part and then wait a month. So I sort of knew if I stitched it at all, I was just going to collect those emails and then stitch it all at one time, which is exactly what I'm doing. So it's called Tumbling Stripes. And if you just want to hold it like this. So can you what am I holding? I'm trying to get you to focus on just that block there, that it's like a tumbling block. If you're familiar with tumbling block quilts, which I'm going to show you in a second. So the idea is that there's a solid color, or not a solid, there's one color on one side of a block, another color on another side of the block, and even a third color there. And because these are like rotated in together, it gives and I wish I brought up the thing so I could show you. You can Google Tumbling Stripes Marilyn Owens and probably find some pictures of it. So you can see the stripes are all different types of threads. There's basically three solids of this purplish. It's 30, 31, 32, part of those, the newish DMCs, as well as some metallic stuff. I think I used silk lame braid. I think I used a acrylic cord. The grays are also two DMC grays. There's also some metallic thread in there. There's even, it's like a ribbon actually, and here's a little piece of it still attached. That's a part of that. Again, it's, and I was looking at it, I'm like, well, how could I feel better about this? And I don't know, we'll see. But it's fun to be back into that. Let me do a new stitch here, a new stitch there, which when you're doing cross stitch, it's all crosses, which is fine. And I'm just pointing out, this is like, I'm pretty sure it's like a 20 count, maybe Lugana or Joblin. It's a fabric. It's certainly not canvas, but I knew that it would work just fine. I needed to adjust. Well, I'm not even really following completely, maybe about 2/3 of the way, the threads that are suggested. The idea is you had different color options, but you needed two families, color A and color B, and different things within each kind of family. So we'll see. It doesn't take that long on a night that I'm focus stitching. So I know I will finish this off, and then we'll see if I do the border, if I said, enough, and my fabric arrives and I'm ready to start with the cross stitch again. So there we go. Tumbling Stripes, Marilyn Owens. And I did, because the book is sitting on my lap. I was looking through, in all my books up here, I do have a small area that is quilt books. I have done minimal quilting in my life, but I love the geometry of things. And I have a number of books based on Amish quilts, and that stems from a whole Amish connection, friendship, interest. It's his own story. But I knew that tumbling blocks was a quilt design that is often found in Amish quilts. And so this is one of the books that I have. And so just, I pulled these out to kind of remind myself, when you're doing tumbling blocks, you need 3 different colors or 3 things that are going to stand out. And it is, Amish, some quilts have an element of scrappiness to them. Like this, my symmetrical brain wants to, hey, if you want different colors, like do the whole thing in white. Don't do some white and some blue kind of stuff. But, and then is it go this direction? Yeah, like this one, my eye, really has to focus on the black to see the tumbling blocks, because it's so random in its colors. And then over here, again, so I love this one. I mean, this is clearly planned out kind of stitching, as opposed to the more randomness. So I was just trying to see, would anything help me? And these are blocks that are like overlapping to one another. So we'll see. If you are at all interested, the Amish quilt world has some beautiful, beautiful things, and some very good background and stories related to how it's built up over centuries at this point. And it's just an area that, because of a school-related thing, some wonderful Amish family friends with, and my quilt interest came from there. So, Tumbling Stripes, working on that. Oops. Sorry, this is getting hooked. As I'd mentioned, I have, over the last few videos, shared some needlework loves. And I know last time I basically had more on my list, and I'm like, the video's already long enough, so let me just stop here. So I'm going to just do one of the things that was on that video that's actually related to canvas work. So canvas work is in general usually done on a piece of canvas, which is counted in the same way like linen or Aida is accounted, but that's fabric. Canvas has a stiffness to it, and there's times if you're doing a certain kind of stitching, or you're pulling tightly or doing something where, canvas is like the perfect thing to use. There's also painted canvas, and that really is what people talk about when they're talking about needlepoint, or at least that's where my brain goes with it. Counted canvas work, which are the things that I've done I've done one painted canvas in my entire life, probably the last one, is what I love. It's the geometry, it's the symmetry, it's the playing with different types of threads. And so that tumbling stripes one, while it's not being done on canvas, is a counted canvas work design. I wanted to share, and what reminded me that I didn't share it last time. Just yesterday or 2 days ago on Instagram, I saw a picture, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's right. I didn't talk about that last time. Perfect. Let me put it on the list for Flosstube. But it was in the story and not on an account, and so I should have taken a screenshot and I didn't, but that's okay. Let me just share with you a little bit about this right here. And this is called Antioch Mosaic, and it usually hangs right there. And I'll just turn, do you guys see that sun? There's a skylight like right above me here. And during this winter time of year, it starts creeping up and up. You see, I usually have stitching, like everything's laying down here because of the sun. And now it's gotten high enough that it goes right over where this hangs. And so I've had this down for a week or two. I forget exactly, because then it'll go down, then it'll come back because of the sun as we move through. Anyway, there are parts during the winter where I do take this down, or I keep it covered because I just don't want the sun to hit it directly. And that's just, I feel like I've hung this needlework pieces in my home based on where the sun is and is not. And I knew I wanted something there, or certainly when I moved in during a springtime, I wasn't really thinking about how the angle was going to affect it. Anyway, it was down, and there was this picture on Instagram. I'm like, this is meant to be. I need to talk about it. So this is an example of a counted canvas work design. This is something I designed myself. And I'm going to try and get as close as possible if you could see that there are different types of stitches going on. And where did this design come from? Well, I didn't make up the whole idea of it. It comes from an actual mosaic. This is called Antioch Mosaic because it is designed to be, in effect, a miniature version. I printed this out kind of poorly of a 10-foot by 10-foot mosaic. This is what's in my hands right now. So it gives you an idea of the size. This is a mosaic that is in, I went to Wellesley College. There's an art museum on campus called the Davis Museum. This mosaic has been a part of the Wellesley's Art Museum, whatever it was called, at various times through the century, at least decades at this point. And there's a whole historical, archaeological story that goes behind it of how this mosaic from Antioch, which is in Turkey or thereabouts area, the archaeological excavations that were happening at a certain time, during a certain time where what did they dig up and who got to keep it. The reading that I've done is at least, it puts somewhat at ease that there were more plans in place of who got what, with certainly some of this being kept by the whatever country it was at that time. But this was a piece that ended up at Wellesley College. Now, I knew this piece when I was a student. This was before, it's been in 3 different locations. When I first arrived as a student, it was before the physical Davis Museum had been, it was in the process of being built. And so at that time, it was actually laid out on a floor, and I have and it was actually somewhere before even that. This is just, you could just see it just a little bit, kind of part of that picture. So this was it within a museum that was on campus at the time. And it was flush right on the floor. It almost looks like you could have walked on it. Anyway, within that time period, the museum was built, and they decided that they wanted to hang it. And it is 5 tons, this mosaic. And so they had to specifically, design the wall with the right reinforcement. And so this is how it was, past tense, in the Davis Museum. There's a little security guard sitting on that chair to give you a sense of size. And so this wall was built for it to hang on it. And then at some point they were doing, so the reason I saw an Instagram post is that the museum has been closed, I think, for about a year. They've been doing much needed heating, electrical conditioning, that kind of work that just needed to get done. And so they started to post where they're going to be reopening in February. And one of the posts they had just done is, looking forward to seeing the Antioch Mosaic back. When they did the previous work, maybe 5-8 years ago, maybe more than that, that's when I think a general restructuring of how they were organizing the museum, they decided, you know what, this is a mosaic that was once on a floor of a village from about 350 AD. It belongs horizontal, not vertical. So that's when they installed it in the floor like this, and you could see, you very clearly cannot walk right over it nowadays. But a few years back, I had the opportunity, I was up on campus, and I said, it's like now or never. So I brought this with me specifically so I could take pictures with the original. And this was, I have this whole little write-up, this essay, because I had entered it in the ANG, American Needlework Guild exhibit, where you're supposed to submit an artist statement if you're doing something that is an original design or, like not a pattern that you've just followed. And this idea of being able to share my whole story behind it. And so I went all out, pictures and everything. It boils down to this. I knew of this mosaic, certainly in the years after I graduated, seeing it in the museum, the times I was there, when it was hanging vertically. And there was something about the geometry that just so appealed to me. And it was like something that simmered in the back of my head for a long time. And I know I first had the idea of doing this in needlework, and I knew that I didn't have the skills yet. I didn't have the ability to visualize how I could make this happen. And some years later, I stumbled upon my original sketching, and I said, you know what, I think I can visualize it now. I had wanted to make this 10 inches by 10 inches so that I could literally make it a 1 inch to 1 foot thing. Mathematically, I couldn't make it work. And I think that really boiled down to these diamond shapes here. And looking at the original and, how many diamonds I needed to fit in there, and that I couldn't make the math work for 10 inches. And so, but when I went to 12 inches, I made it work. I loved the challenge of doing something like this. And I love being able to play around with different stitches. And then a challenge that was just like, how am I going to solve this? Is the fact that these squares, the actual mosaic pieces, you're not limited by like you would be in needlework with horizontal and vertical threads. And I think I even have like a picture that I can show what I'm talking about here. When you look at, so when you look at something like this, and you need that detail, but you're limiting yourself to 12 inches by 12 inches, and not only do you need that detail, but it needs to be on an angle. It's like, what am I going to do about this? And so this actually, I know I've talked about this piece in the past, but I know specifically one of the times I definitely talked about it was early on in my designing career. Second set of designs I put out there were the squares that come from this mosaic. And that's because I stitched these squares separately on silk gauze. So I was able to get in 40 count, like regular, kind of as I needed. And then I basically kind of like appliqued it on top of the canvas. So, what I did, so just to use this guy because it's, looks like a quilt block almost. So stitch this on silk gauze, then laid it down, probably kind of, cut out so that it was pretty close to the stitching, probably, a few attaching stitches. And then I went to do this like beige color stitching on top of the silk gauze. So that made it stay attached. And I remember when I came up with this idea, well, can I do this, silk gauze separate applique thing? And then when I did the first one and I liked the way it looked, it was like the satisfaction of I've found a solution to a problem. So if you are so interested in there's 8 squares, but 2 of them repeat. So there's like 6 different squares. If you can find these designs in my Etsy store, just the squares. And again, they were some of my earliest ones. There have been times, like I said, once, maybe twice when I've shown this before, where I've gotten a few people ask, well, will you do a pattern of the whole design? And I'll be honest, I have very little interest in doing that because the time it would take to write up the instructions, to do the diagrams of the stitches, I don't even think I have on record what threads I used. To put all that time in, I don't think there's that much of an interest for it that it becomes worth it to me to take the time to do it. Hey, if enough people made a comment about it in the comments about, oh my gosh, I would love to stitch that, I'll consider doing up the instructions, kind of reverse engineering, looking at what I did, finding a stitch diagram. And again, sometimes you work on something that's just like a personal project, but it's more than that. It's like a personal mission. And there was a time where this idea was just so appealing to me. And then I was so excited when I made it work. And then, like I said, and it was some years after it had been completed that I was going to be at Wellesley and decided to take it with me and get the pictures that I did. So as I said, it's now laying on a floor, and there's this perfect kind of like stairwell balcony overhang that I was able to run upstairs and take a picture of looking down. So you can really get the sense of, this is print out of it would look much better if we were, this is just the easiest way for me to show you the pictures here on Flosstube. So, just a fun thing that I always love hearing about projects that stitchers do that just have some very personal connection to them. Somebody who's doing a reproduction sampler of something their great-great-great-grandmother stitched. What a personal project that is. Or some type of project where you're inserting a lot of your own, initials of your friends, or some specific thing that you're making a connection with. Or hey, sometimes when you've seen something, for me it was a mosaic from 350 AD, and you want to find a way to kind of make it come alive in what you love doing with needle and thread. That's what that project was for me. Looking at the time, and all right, I'm going to just jump into this. Not so much stitching related at this moment, but I'm always looking for ideas out there. Design ideas, sure, but just in general, what appeals to me in a visual kind of way. And I think I've mentioned before how much I enjoy going to museums when I can, loving that these days there is so much online that museums are able to put their collections online, and you see all kinds of stuff. So this is kind of a story related to all of that. A couple weeks ago, I was, it must have been on PBS. What streaming app was I on? I'm sure it was PBS. There was a PBS program that I found. It was, I think, out a couple years ago. And I feel like I might have seen, it was 3 episodes. And it was about the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And it was filmed, it started filming right before the lockdown. So the first parts of it are like in the early winter of 2020. And they're getting excited because the year, was it 2020 or 2020? It was 2020. Was the 150th anniversary of the founding of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So I think the idea of this series was very much going to be about following all the exciting things that the museum had on tap for celebrating. And then one of the major exhibits that they were putting out for this anniversary was open for 2 weeks. And then March of 2020, things shut down. So there was these 3 episodes, and it was really, so obvious, they kept filming, or I don't know exactly when it was originally supposed to air. But it clearly filmed for quite, probably into 2021, and showing how the museum came back in all kinds, when I mean that on many levels, and also how the refocus happened in terms of being more aware of the items they had, who they were representing, who they were not representing with what was out from their collection. In one of these episodes, long story, but here we go. In one of these episodes, they're showing, I think it was interns that had been studying some work online and were so excited that they finally were allowed to physically be in the space to study items in person. And one of them just really just caught me. This is part of the cloisters, which is part of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's way uptown, and it's like a medieval, I gotta say castle, that's not right, but cloisters. And so it's very much a specific part of their art collection that's there. And there's this little book from the 1500s, and it's a book of flowers. And it was just extraordinary, at least, what I saw on the screen. So the Met has a wonderful website where, I don't know if it's 100%, but a whole lot of their collection is online with really high resolution pictures. You can really zoom in. So what I do, I go online to type book of flowers, whatever enough I needed, and was able to see the pictures from what the item was that I was seeing as a part of that documentary. And there was just something about it that appealed to me. So I picked one of them and I printed it out. And I just thought, this is just beautiful. And I'm just going to show you. So it was irises was what I printed out. And this, what I'm holding right here, which is about 6 by 8 inches, is, I believe, a little bit bigger than the actual book. And this is from the 1500s. And like, it's beautiful, the drawings that are on here. So then I had this idea. I'm like, and so I'm scrolling through all these beautiful flowers. And another piece of it is that all of the flowers that are in here, let me just, these flowers were painted in witness to their inherent beauty, not gathered merely for their symbolism, nor their perceived medicinal value. Each of them can be found in the gardens of the Met cloisters. So I don't know if I think this book came to them in about 2018, 2019. I don't know if they then proceeded to plant more flowers that they didn't already have covered. I don't know. So I was on Amazon looking for some other things that I was purchasing. And I just, again, this printed out to be about 6 by 8 inches. And I discovered I could get a photo album that holds 6 by 8 inches pretty cheaply. And I hit buy. And what I did is I printed out for my own book of flowers. This is the information. Book of Flower Studies, 1510 to 1515. Master of Claude de France. I'll come back to that in a moment. But printed this out, and then I just printed out all the flowers. So I'm just going to do a quick scroll through here. And I mean, you're getting a lot of the reflection, because this is just, a photo album. There was something about finding an album that was just the right size that I'm like, I'm just going to print these out. I don't know what I'm going to do with this other than have a beautiful album an album of these beautiful drawings. Most of them have an insect, a butterfly, a dragonfly, something in them, which I think is just an interesting addition to it. And sorry. I don't know. I mean, I've done certainly some designs with flowers. And then somewhat randomly, there's an alphabet. And then there's the last few. So I printed out some of the information that was on the website about the thing. It contains 39 detailed illuminations of European flowers. And then there's some stuff about the way the binding of it, and it was on prepared calfskin. And then this is the detailed listing of what flowers were there. I just share with you because I love finding inspiration, and sometimes I don't know where it's going to take me. And I have a running list in a book of ideas that some of them have turned into cross-stitch designs. Some of them have not and will not, but just things to get me thinking. And then again, this was like, I think I spent $5 for this album. I wanted this size, and then I found one that actually had a flower on it. I don't know. I probably would have wanted one that didn't have anything on it, but it just sort of seemed meant to be. So I have my own little book of flowers here. A little sort of moral of the story here is go on your museum websites, see what kind of fun stuff you can find. There are some museums that have very impressive online collections. Like I said, it's not only how much they have, but how good their pictures are. The Met being one, and a number of others that really have an amazing open source collection. And a lot of the pictures from the Met, from many of these major museums, are open, the Creative Commons, what's the wording? Where there's no copyright to it. You could use the pictures however you want to. So I just wanted to share that little project that I printed out create a little photo album. We'll see what, if anything, I do with it. So I'm going to wrap this up at this point. There's some other like needlework loves, but I think I'm going to save that kind of like for its own video. Would be like the last episode of my needlework loves, because there's a number of small things that I still wanted to add in from my whole list. I hope everyone's having a good holiday season, whatever good and whatever holiday season means to you. Because it can also be a very tough time of year for a lot of folks, and I certainly understand that. I looking forward to coming back with a Flosstube probably about the first week of January, very early in January. I have a special release, a new design to share with you. It's special enough that I'm not saving it for Nashville, that I think it needs to stand on its own. I mean, I'll have it to sell in Nashville for stores, but I am putting it out there and selling it on my own before Nashville. And so I'm just leaving you with a few teases about this. You may or may not know, January of 2022, I also came out with a special release. Again, purposely making it so it was not part of the amazingness that happens at Nashville, but allowing it to stand on its own. And I was so excited to bring that project to share it with all of you. And I am so excited to be finally able to share this project with all of you in January. Again, there's all kinds of reasons why I've timed it as it is, and I so look forward to sharing that. So there's your little teaser about what's upcoming. Again, if you'd like to be entered in a giveaway, just give me some ideas of monochrome color combinations. And, if you're not like really, just put black and white, put yellow and green, put any colors you want. If you just want to be entered, I'm happy to share the love when it comes to my designs as much as I can. But again, I would love to know your ideas for monochrome colors. However you spend the next few weeks, I hope they're filled with a lot of joy and peace for everybody, for the whole world. Happy New Year to all of you. Till next time.